Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon in Europe and good evening in Asia. We have a very exciting session this morning. It will be a chat between friends, but we hope that at the end you will know what to do after COVID-19 if you're in the manufacturing industry and what is happening around, what that company is struggling with. Hopefully you will find this information very valuable. And we have a couple of extraordinary people with us today. First, I will introduce Jeff Hawkins from Festo. And if you are not familiar with Pesto, probably you remember this picture. It was Jeff Bezos a few years ago playing with a dragonfly that Pesto created. It's a robot. And it's part of the technology that they can create. They have now dozens of these robots showcasing their technology. Pesto is an automation company and also has AI capabilities. So we are very happy to have Jeff Hawkins with us today. He is being in the manufacturing industry from the beginning of his career, directly in manufacturing and also providing solutions to the manufacturing industry, from machine vision and robotics all the way to full assembly lines. Jeff, welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Alex, and good day and good evening to everyone. So part of our discussion today is what are we doing post-COVID-19? How is it affecting automation? How is it affecting digitalization? Some new terminology that's out there, a lot of buzzwords that people are hearing, reshoring, onshoring, digitalization, and some of these things. So we'll talk a little bit today about what are the current trends that we're seeing in automation, who's been affected, where do we go from here, what's going to happen next, or what should happen next if you're an up and coming from a very small company to a very, very large multi-billion dollar corporation. And then we'll tell a couple of stories of automation. What is AI, machine vision, deep learning? These are not scary topics. They're actually quite simple in the preface. They can become very complex if you allow them to. But even for a small corporation, AI can be beneficial. So we'll discuss that over the next 25 minutes or so.
Thank you, Jeff. And also, we have with us Divyabh Mishra, CEO of CrowdANALYTIX. CrowdANALYTIX, for the people who never heard about the company, is heavyweight in the artificial intelligence industry. CrowdANALYTIX has been for more than 7 years providing artificial intelligence solutions to corporations around the world. And Divyabh is the genius that put together the concept of crowdsourcing and artificial intelligence. Many have tried and they fail. He has been very successful doing this and has an impressive team of data scientists behind him. 25,000 plus and counting. Divyabh, that is very impressive. Thank you for being here with us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Alex, for introducing me. So as as Jeff mentioned as well, we'll talk a bit about, of course, how AI can help with automation post-COVID. But my focus is going to be on helping you guys understand what are the foundational changes that are needed before any AI solutions can be built. There's a lot of effort that goes into structuring information, collecting information, and I'll be focusing a lot on explaining those, and hopefully with some case studies of how we've done that for some of our customers. Very excited to talk to all of you guys in the next 20 minutes or so. Yeah.
Thank you, Divyabh. Excellent. So if you have any questions, please just type them on the chat room or in the question sections, and we will try to address them during the session. If for some reason we don't touch on them, if you leave us your information, we promise we will answer you. I'll send you an email. Feel free to do that any time, but at the end we will start considering the questions. So let's start with Jeff. Jeff, what do you see happening in the manufacturing industry? It seems that there were some issues already before COVID-19, but now during the pandemic, things are really start getting crazy a little. And now governments and companies are going back to work. There are some changes that need to happen, and there are some big challenges. So can you share a little bit about what you are seeing out there?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, I think most of us are very aware. I'm working from my home, as are 100 million Americans. And globally, that number factors out. So that's the first change, right? We found out the limits of our infrastructure at our home, our ability, our web servers, our those type things. And so those structures with 5G coming will be critical. So prior to this, maybe people thought that 5G was not necessary. But as we've all run into problems with bandwidth through our current subscribers, that thing will change as well. Aging infrastructure. We were very much made aware of some of our aging infrastructures around the world that were not able to cope. 75% of companies that in a recent survey had supply chain interruption due to COVID. 75%. Those are historical, that you have an event globally that interferes with 75% of global manufacturing. With 100 million people that working remotely, we have to look for different technologies to be able to be more efficient. Part of that's AI, part of that is remote. What do I recommend in some companies? Their IT departments need to at least put together a SWAT team of how to work better with automation and separate that from the global cloud so that they feel more comfortable with that, with workers being remote and being able to control machines remotely. That just has to happen to improve efficiency. The other thing is, when we look at AI and we look at our machines on the plant floor, how can these things better help when we, quote, reshore, or we start bringing back manufacturing to places that don't have tremendous amounts of labor ready to go? How do you crush that learning curve? Some of that can be done through automation. We can run fairly complex automation scenarios. You can do it remotely, you can do it through software, and determine what your needs are going to be ahead of time so that you can better prepare to work now in quote unquote reshoring your business. Many of us at my current company have found working at home to be difficult. Others have found it quite easily. But we've also been able to remotely now access our customers, our systems, faster and better than a lot of our competition. And in doing so, that's opened up the world for a lot of us currently at my company, in that if we have remote access and we have an IoT gateway, we have that ability to go in and fix, look, maintenance a system that can give a customer reassurance that, hey, no matter what happens, we will be aware of how our systems are running, what needs to be fixed, and increasing throughput. So those are some of the definitions that are coming. The digitalization is going to be pushed ahead. A tremendous amount from that survey this week that came out is that many, many executives are looking to rehome basically a lot of manufacturing from critical areas so that they don't go through the COVID-19 critical systems again. Supply chain, 3D printing, AI, remote access, these are all things that companies are going to have to embrace. They can no longer put it off. COVID-19 crushed bandwidths at companies. It also brought out the best, but it also brought out the weakness of our supply chain system that will have to be fixed. So those are part of it. Now, how does AI work? What is AI? Is it some cloud-based, magic? No, it's not. It's applying algorithms to things that we don't normally look at. And so I'll use two story time telling applications here, so maybe a diverse audience could better understand it. So let's just say that you had a conveyor belt, you have a robot that does pick and place, and you're dropping frozen French fries from a machine onto a conveyor belt. And a typical vision system and automation pick and place uses vision. It locates the French fry. The robot, whether it's a Scara, 6-axis, Cartesian, or any type of robot, goes and gets the data from the camera, X, Y, theta, picks the French fry and places it into a cup or some type of device. All right. So those of you that are out there know, what is the dead move? The unproductive move is a robot returning to pick up the next French fry. Well, it can only know where it needs to go based on the camera telling it this is the location of your next French fry. And somebody says, well, how can I improve on that? Well, what you want to look for is the dead load. When the robot is not actually handling a French fry, that's waste. That's wasted time, energy, and function. So now we put an IoT gateway. Now we take the analytics coming off of the vision system and we start putting that into a point cloud data cluster. What looks random to us, if you were watching this machine drop the French fries on the conveyor, to our human eye, it looks random. These things just fall all over the conveyor and the machine has to pick them up. Well, very quite possibly it's not random. There may be some type of organization to that we just don't see. So during the course of the day, the week, the month, the analytics start coming out, and with a little bit of neural networking, the robot becomes a little bit smarter and says, I know now that this randomization is not so random, and this French fry more than likely is going to be toward the top of the conveyor right now, and the next drop may be toward the bottom of the conveyor. So as I make my next move, pick and place, I'm going to move to where I think the next French fry will be. Why? Because it's analyzed the point cloud data, and it knows now where to go to pre-stage. So maybe that's only a small percentage improvement. However, that improvement day in and day out becomes increased throughput, less work on the robot, faster pick and place, more accurate pick and place, and possibly just a percentage increase in overall throughput because it's faster, even though the robot itself is no faster. And so those are things that AI are not really considered, but that is a simple application of it. So a simple IoT gateway with your existing machine vision, your existing tripod or a Delta type robot. Now you've increased your throughput and you've learned something about your process. So there's a simple visualization. I hope you can kind of visualize that without us being able to do that. The second thing, let's take something that really takes very little additional equipment whatsoever. Let's say I'm handling your parts. And the parts that I'm handling are through a servo-controlled closed-loop system. I use an IoT gateway. I monitor the current of the motors throughout the day. And then a point cloud also starts showing, out of randomization, out of something that's unseen, I start getting a target group of flyers out to the extreme left or right of a curve. That's interesting. Why is that? Then you can put in some controls that says, I tell you what, every time you see this flyer, this abnormality in the current draw, why don't you take that part and sort it? Why don't we put that part somewhere else for the moment and analyze it? So one of our demonstrations is batteries. So batteries right now in the electronic industry are a huge increase right now. There's batteries in nearly everything. Problem is we have to produce this at very high speeds. You can't weigh every battery. So now we're handling the battery. Why not know its density and weight? So through just the system we currently have, we have now figured out that some batteries are lighter than others, or some batteries are heavier than others. We can segregate those aside and determine if they're still viable product. So that's just a real basic of an IoT gateway, providing data from machines you already have, from a process that you did not know. So if we didn't weigh scale all of these and you didn't do extreme testing on every single battery, maybe we wouldn't have known that, hey, some batteries just don't have the density of others. They may fail quicker. They may not hold a charge as long. Maybe if you get a tolerance stack where you've got too many of those together, you would have a weaker battery. So these type things will be found out as AI gets applied to processes. Similar to 20 years ago when vision got applied, we will find things that we didn't know existed, and then we can improve upon them.
Thank you, Jeff. Excellent. Now, Divyabh, can you tell us a little bit, what do you expect to change in the manufacturing industry, especially among the manufacturing process?
So, just to add to Jeff, I think Jeff has shared quite a few good examples and the changes that are happening. We are observing similar changes. I think two areas where we are getting good interest from customers already. One is around, as Jeff mentioned, remote monitoring is going to become a reality, right? This is not going to be just for a while. This is how things will get done going forward. Remote monitoring of what? So things like quality management, early detection of quality, as well as performance monitoring of production systems are likely to get remote. Now, how do you do that though, right? You have to have the basic infrastructure in place to make that happen. All of the IoT devices, all of the sensors, of course, are needed. But the data now has to be structured, made available to these different business processes in the format that they need before the kind of AI systems that Jeff was talking about can be enabled. So let me kind of take a couple of quick examples to give you on both these things, right? Remote monitoring, and the second one that we are seeing already is, before COVID happened, there was a lot of move towards making everything as efficient as possible, right? The whole focus was around efficiency, doing things cost effectively. But efficiency also means you lack agility. To make something efficient, you don't have redundancy in a system that's a very efficient system, right? And if you don't have that redundancy, you can't change very quickly. And that's been the problem where a lot of companies who were relying on certain supply chains suddenly saw a disruption and didn't know what to do. So there is going to be a lot of move around systems driving agility for businesses, and I'll give you an example of that as well. So the first example I have is around cement manufacturing. So there's a client that we're working with. Cement is a pretty simple product to understand, so I've picked that as an example. I understand all of you are from different industries. But just to give you a quick primer on cement, right? Cement is basically a combination of limestone and clay. And it's the proportion in which you combine it and the temperature at which you heat it and convert it that determines the quality of the cement itself. Now, generally, to determine quality during production, a small sample is generally taken and someone manually, physically has to look at that cement sample, take a decision on what the mix is looking like, make any changes in the production process, and hope that the wastage is minimized. Now, in the current process, 18 to 20% of cement actually gets wasted in some organizations. What we are doing using AI here is we've established various sensors and devices that now measure different product compositions as well as different states of the machines during the cycle. For example, the cement has to be heated at 1500 degrees centigrade. You need to know how long that heating is happening. But the sensors give you raw information, right? So the first step we always end up taking, you can call this the digital twin, but it's a digital twin not just of the product, but also of the process, of the production systems, of the equipment that is being used. Unless you have that data translated into structured information, you can't really build AI systems on top. So the AI system that we built for the cement manufacturer was to help them detect as early as possible, the quality of cement. And the quality of cement is a direct relationship with the amount of limestone present in that cement. So we were able to predict the amount of limestone early in the cycle that reduced wastage considerably. Now, this system was designed to reduce wastage, but today it's enabling remote monitoring of these sort of quality aspects of this process, right? So you're going to see more and more systems that help you monitor and do early detection of systems, help you make day-to-day decisions on how to manage the systems to meet certain long-term goals. The second thing that very interesting example is with a Japanese food distributor. Now, what they have to do is with a number of retailers they work with. This is the largest food distributor in Japan. And they have to work with multiple retailers where they decide on what product should be sold in which retail store and where should those products be kept. With the manual process they have currently, they are able to make these decisions once a quarter. That sort of frequency is probably not going to catch a change like COVID has brought, right? Suddenly the buying patterns, the consumer buying patterns have shifted. If you're not going to be able to shift quickly enough, if you're not going to reorganize your supply chain, decide on what assortment to have, you're going to struggle. Luckily, we had the system in place for this food distributor where AI is helping them decide on a continuous basis based on customer data, based on demographics, based on product attributes, transactions, on exactly what the assortment should be and where the placement should be to maximize profitability for the food distributor as well as the retailer. Now, that cannot be done without AI because if you do it manually, it just takes way too long to make decisions at that speed. So faster, more agile decisioning is the other area where AI is applied. So these were two examples that I wanted to share, Alex. I hope that helps.
Very helpful. Thank you, Divyabh. Now I will Jeff show you this next slide. And I can see that your company is deep into IoT and bringing related solutions to the manufacturing industry. Now, what have you seen regarding the data? Are companies taking advantage of the data that all these sensors and your automation is creating, or are they not taking advantage of this data?
Yeah, I guess there's two ways to look at that. There are companies that are obviously taking advantage of it. The first and foremost that were leaders in this industry were the aerospace industry. You know, they set up remote monitoring of aircraft in flight where they knew if a fuel pump was reaching its end of life and could then schedule maintenance and things like that in the industry that was very expensive and very critical to operations. Now that needs to be brought down to your local manufacturing center. Many have been a little resistant because they're worried about keeping their data local. So understand that, in today's world, most of us, if you have something, here, our data already is on the cloud. It is already in someone else's possession. And we need to look at that and say, all right, at what point do we need to open this up a little bit where the data now for your company is in either, a big company's cloud, which is quite secure, your banking, your other things are already there, and start freeing up a little bit of our pre-existing thoughts on we're too cautious about our data. Data can be contained, and it can be contained very well. Post-COVID-19, I think we've all seen things that affected us personally. As far as I didn't order a whole lot from my grocery store remotely. It wasn't something I was used to doing. Now I've found that probably post-COVID, I will probably continue to do that because at some point I didn't enjoy standing in a supermarket checkout line waiting, to check out and bag my groceries and take them to the car. So I think those things will expand. We're already seeing a 60% increase in requests from customers looking at e-commerce, especially in the grocery industries. We're looking at, hey, can you remotely produce something? We even had some inference on a machine vision forum. The person that's picking your groceries, what is the biggest negativity to people using e-commerce for groceries? Well, it was that they don't pick the fruit or the vegetables that my wife or my partner likes. Okay, so now with the emergence of 5G, it will take that to have real-time updates. The person picking your groceries will probably have a little camera mounted on their glasses or their body, and they will look as they go to pick your groceries if that's okay or not with you. You'll be live on the app if you wish, and they will show you the tomatoes. They will show you something and say, is this the one you like? Is this the avocado you like or don't like? And you have 5 seconds, or you have some type of time that you'll have to make that decision and accept what they're showing you. So that's probably the future of that. But e-commerce, these type things that have affected everyone, from huge amounts of drivers in your neighborhood delivering new goods to you, to your front door, to the use of your smartphone, to entertainment. These will all affect us, and they will trickle down to automation as well. We will have to catch up in some areas, and we'll have to open our minds a little bit on others and say, it wasn't feasible before, but it has to be feasible now, because if we don't innovate, we die.
Correct. Thank you for sharing that. We are running out of time. It can be exciting to talk about automation and artificial intelligence. Divyabh, one final question. If you could recommend one thing to our audience in the manufacturing industry to do right now in order to successfully adopt artificial intelligence, what would you suggest for them to do?
Sure. So let me answer this question based on what we've seen and where we've seen companies struggle with AI and where we've seen things go very smoothly. And if there's one thing where all companies need to focus on is in getting their data structured and the foundations of structuring that data established. 80% of our time, believe it or not, goes into getting companies to have the right IoT devices, right sensors, right raw information, and then building all of the algorithms that would then extract and structure this information in the form of digital twins of each of these products. But think in terms of not just digital twins, but digital twins for each process, because information may be the same, the raw information may be exactly the same, but depending on what exactly you're trying to automate, if it's quality or production or just supply chain, the same devices, the same data needs to be interpreted into a very different structured information for that process to get automated. So if there's one thing that you need to do, get your data structured and get that process done foundationally. The rest of it will happen much more smoothly after that. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Jeff, same question. What would you suggest, one thing that you would suggest to our audience right now that they need to do right away in order to be successful with the adoption of automation?
I would say be open to new ideas. Bring in the experts, sit around, listen to them, do a facilities tour. Come back after a facilities tour, point out, use a Pareto chart and say, these are some of the bottlenecks we see. What do you see? Compare the two. Find ways to come to a mutual solution that may be beneficial to your work or your business. And, do it today. Tomorrow I think this whole pandemic, I believe, caught everyone off. Who would have thought that 75% of the world's logistics would be interrupted? I don't believe anyone thought of that other than a world war. I think no one has seen that in common in history. So let's plan for the next one today instead of tomorrow. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Jeff and Divyabh, thank you for your contribution to this session. We unfortunately ran out of time, and we do have some questions, and we will address them to the persons that asked them and send them an email. Also, if you want to know a little bit more about what we discussed here today, feel free to contact me, and I will be happy to introduce you to Jeff or Divyabh. For now, we run out of time. Again, thank you for being here. We will probably have another session soon, since the audience was just great today. Thank you very much. We will see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and healthy.